Hello everyone, I'm just chilling in the park up at Greenwich. As you can see, there's the Observatory behind me, Greenwich Park, and if you look in the distance there, that's the National Maritime Museum in the grounds, and there's the Canary Wharf banking area of London. It's behind that. It's really lovely here. Anyway, I'm here now to answer all your questions on the question and answer video. So I'll get started straight away. Question number 1. The first question is by travel_master1 or travelmaster1, and basically you ask, do you drive different routes every day? Not every day, no. I do drive the same route all the time. So I drive the same route. I've been doing it for nearly 5 years now, actually. But I do swap shifts that I don't want to do. Example, if I've got early shifts, I don't want to do earlies, like, you know, anything that starts really before 6:30 in the morning. It's just, for me, it's too early. I mean, some people like earlies, and you know, but for me, I swap my shifts if I start very early, so that way I end up driving other routes. I could swap with someone on my same route, but I like variety, so I do drive all the routes in my garage, as I've done in all the garages that I've worked at, because I just like variety. I get bored easily, you know. So yeah, I mean, if I wore this t-shirt every day, it'd just be boring. I mean, this t-shirt's 18 years old. I got it from New Zealand 18 years ago, but I don't wear it all the time. I've got loads of different t-shirts, so that's why it's lasted that long, you know. But yeah, regards your question, yeah, I do drive the same route all the time, but I do drive different routes. So once every week or every 2 weeks I drive a different route, and that could be for a couple of days in a row. So I hope that answers your question there. Just like you all know, you can be on the spare rota. There's usually a spare rota at any garage that you work at, and that means you get any route. You can get absolutely anything. Obviously I don't want to be on the spare rota because I kind of like to know what I'm doing and roughly what time I'm starting in advance, you know. Anyway, on with the second question is by Jordan Joyce. Jordan asks, are you one of the drivers who allow bus enthusiasts to request a destination blind change? So what I'm trying to think about this here, I suppose, yeah, I always try to help people out. Obviously if I'm on a route, I'm not going to change my destination whatsoever. If I'm at a terminus and I've got a bit of time, I could just change it for a little bit so someone can take a photo, because I do understand that you want to get photos of buses with different route destinations on. So I'm the kind of person that helps people out, but obviously I've got to be professional and obviously keep my route up with the destination at all times. But yeah, I do allow these things. Like, for example, when I was a little boy, I remember this bus driver let me sit in the driving seat. It was a Saturday. I'd just come back from Polish school, because I used to go to Polish school to learn Polish when I was younger. It's probably about 1986, 1987, 1988, around then, and this driver let me sit on his bus. Now, I couldn't find this driver for years, but I eventually found him around 2007, 2008. I forgot his name now, but I actually found him. I couldn't believe it. When I was driving buses from 2002, I didn't know who he was, but I eventually found him. He's retired, but he was the one who let me sit in the driving seat and let me, you could say, finally dream of being a bus driver. And it was an old Leyland Fleetline road-bodied double-decker, and I can remember the steering wheel had, it was like it was bumpy bits. The old steering wheels were hard and quite thin, you know, to put your fingers round. But I can remember that experience, and that lasted with me for quite a long time. But yeah, I will do a destination blind change, you know, because I'm not one of these miserable drivers. I do like to help people out, you know. Right, the third question is from a Model Buses 98, and he asks, I think it's he asks, do you find it tiring to drive all day? Yes, I do, actually. I mean, I just did a 12-hour shift yesterday, and tomorrow on Friday I've got a 12-hour shift as well. So yeah, but we don't do 12-hour shifts all the time. I know 1 week in 10 weeks I'd usually do 12-hour shifts, but you do get a 2-hour 15-minute break, which which is nice. Depends on different routes, shifts, you know. I do remember doing, say, a 12-hour shift years ago but the maximum you can work is 10 hours, so they have breaks kind of in between. But yeah, as you said, do you find it tiring to drive all day? Yes and no, depends. If I get a good sleep, I'm okay if I'm eating the right food as well. If I eat the wrong foods, I get tired, actually. If I'm eating foods that are hard to digest, I get tired, especially after I've eaten and I get in a bus. That's when you can start to feel a bit sleepy, you know, because your food's trying to digest and you're sat down, you know. But I try and drink plenty of water to keep me awake and alert at all times, you know. So I hope that answers your question there. Just to let you all know, I've got myself one of these. I've just got like a big book and I'm writing all your questions in it. Cost me 1 pence. Look at that, it's a 2015 diary. And they were throwing them away literally at, I don't know, was it? I'm not sure what place it was. A stationery place, and they were literally 1 pence each. And it's like a quality book with A4 paper. Alright, it's a diary, but only says it at the top. So literally, I've got some good paper and I'm writing down all your questions. And I'm trying to think of how to answer all your questions. Anyway, the next question is by a Rizi Rajan, and he asks, have you ever driven a Mercedes-Benz bendy bus? She's asked a few questions here. Wait a minute. So the first question from Rizi is, have you ever driven a Mercedes-Benz bendy bus? No, I haven't actually. I've never driven a bendy bus at all. I've seen them when I was up in Yorkshire. I remember seeing them in Bradford, and they eventually took them out of service as well. So I've never driven a Mercedes-Benz bendy bus. I don't mind driving a bendy bus actually. So there are buses I would like to drive if possible. It's nice to drive a new Route Master. Never got to drive one at the old depot I worked at in London, whereas this other depot I work at now, we actually have Route Master, so it's nice to drive a new Route Master. I've not driven an old Route Master as yet. That would be something I'd like to do. Anyway, and Riz's next question is, how many companies have you worked for? Right, well, I've worked for, I was at First Bus for just over 7 years in Huddersfield. Then I was at K-Line Bus for 2 years, and they have a sister company called Centre Bus. It's the same company, but it was Centre Bus in Elland, and I worked there for 1 year. Reason I've moved around the companies, well, I'll be honest with you, I did lose my job at First Bus. I had a few bumps. I don't want to go into too much detail, but yeah, so I lost my job at one company. But change is actually good, because I wouldn't have moved, so I'm glad change has happened, you know. K-Line buses, they've changed their name now, they're called Tiger Blue, but they had a lot of shifts. They had like 11.5, 12-hour shifts every day. It was tiring. That was very tiring. And I put on weight as well. I went up to 18 stone from about 16.5, just because I was doing 2 hours extra every day, constantly, over the 2 years. So I decided to move to Centre Bus in Elland to drive the normal smaller shifts, you know, and there was a lot of smaller buses there as well. So I worked for 2 bus companies and 3 depots in Yorkshire, which is in the Huddersfield and Halifax area. I did actually help out at the Leeds Centre Bus, and so that in a way was 4. Actually, no, even at First Bus I worked at Halifax. So I worked at First Bus Huddersfield, helping out at Halifax occasionally. That was really good to drive different routes in Halifax. Then I drove at K-Line in Huddersfield. I helped out at the Leeds Centre Bus company, and then eventually I moved to the Elland Centre Bus company, which is not far from where I lived. It was literally like a 5-6 minute drive, whereas now I take an hour to get to work. I don't mind, it's normal in London. So yeah, anyway, so I've worked, and then I've obviously worked for a Bellio down here, and then obviously I work for another company now. I can't say the name, as you know, social media work policy applies. So I've actually worked in total for 5 companies, and I've worked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've worked at 7 different garages, and that's in my 15 years as a bus driver since 2002. And Riz's third question is, what shift do you like doing? What shift do I like doing? Let me see. The shift I like doing. Well, I do like. I suppose the more hours that you do, you get paid more. There's some weeks I get paid more than others because you just do more hours. But I would prefer to do a normal well, if possible, it would be nice to do a 35-hour shift, which is quite rare. We just have 1 or 2 of them. Even though we get paid 38 hours to do a 35-hour shift, that's the minimum we get paid, is 38 hours paid week. But I do between 35 and 48 hours a week, and I would prefer to do a 35-hour week. You know, just want to work like everyone else does in an office. I mean, don't want to work too many hours. I didn't mind in the first few years when I was bus driving. I was working up to 60-65 hours a week on some weeks, and I always did 50 hours minimum. I was doing 50 to 55 hours, and occasional weeks up to 65 hours. But I decided to do less hours. When my father passed away back in 2005, I decided there's more to life than work, and I didn't want to work as much anymore. Just wanted more quality time, you know. So yeah, my favourite shift would be like a normal, you know, maybe like a 7 till 5 shift, 7 till I don't know, I like all the shifts really. I like the odd late now and again. I don't really like doing the night shifts. Maybe once a year I might do a night shift. Obviously that's London only. But a late shift is nice now and again. But I would say it's mostly day shifts. There is a 2 o'clock till 11 shift. That's quite nice. I can get up late, you know, I've slept well, and I can go to work and still come back and catch the tube before it closes down, you know. But then when you're in London, Friday and Saturday night is now night tube, so you can get home a bit quicker. So I don't mind really doing all kinds of shifts, I'll be honest. But to put into perspective, I would say the best one is the day one really. It's more socially, so I prefer more, you know, 6:30 to 7:30 start, and finishing between 4 and 6, 7 at night, you know. But remember, I do all kinds of shifts, so I just basically do all of them. I've got used to it over 15 years, and that's just the way it is. Right, the next question is, the 5th question, is by a DK47TK, and he asks, well, I think it's a he, I don't know, so sorry if you're male or female. I know quite a few of you, but I don't know all of you in detail. But anyway, DK47TK has asked, do you like the old buses or the new ones? Oh man, I'm in the sun here, sorry, I want to get out the sunlight, the sun's coming around. Do I like new buses or old ones? After driving in London for 5 years, I do like new buses. When I was driving buses in Huddersfield, there were always old buses. All the time there were old buses, and we never got any new ones, so it's really nice to have new buses. We did have new buses in Huddersfield after a few years, you know, but in London there's more kinds of new buses. Like there's the Volvos, there's the Enviros, even the single-decker versions. You know, at the garage depot that I work at, there's lots of kinds of new buses, and there's more new buses at the current depot that I work at, more than the other depot I worked at. The other depot, the other garage, which is Bellio, has a lot of older buses. But I like variety. I like driving new buses, and I like old ones. Old ones are nice now and again, but in general I like new ones because everything works, everything's a lot smoother. Acceleration, braking, especially on the hybrids, and the air conditioning, especially in this weather, as you can see, the air conditioning is nice, even though sometimes it doesn't work on a lot of these new buses, you know. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. I think I better stop the video now because it's going to get to quite a long time. So I've answered 5 questions. I was hoping to answer about 10 or 15, but I'm going to have to go into all these questions in detail so that I can get all your questions answered. So this is obviously episode 1 of question and answers with Double Decker Anton. See you all later, everyone. And as I usually say, have a lovely day. Bye bye.